Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So the portion we are on, I've been explaining last couple of weeks, one of the subtlest portions of the Gita, very profound, because he's talking about how every activity, every thought, word, deed, in fact, even before thought, even the perception, should be converted to a worship, a yajña, a sacrifice. So I've told you the central theme of Vedanta is nothing but sacrifice, as embodied in the ritual of fire worship. You sacrifice your egocentric desires, which is the offering, and your spiritual growth, the divinity within you is kindled. You grow spiritually to that extent, which is the fire shooting up, right? So the performance of the ritual reminds you that this is the purpose of your existence, to get to the self. So we talked about how perception, which is receipt of stimuli, reaction within you, all should be dedicated to a higher purpose. And in the last verse we did 28, he talks about the reaction, action in the world. Even within that action, you should always strive for higher grades of service. That's what he talks about in 28, very important. So he says the lowest is dravya yajña, giving of wealth, because it's an excess you have. You give something out of your excess. Of course, it's a service. But higher than that is you deny yourself something to give something. That is called tapo yajña. You are actually putting in an effort to give. So I told you, some of the doctors I know, they actually deny themselves their vacation time. They're working hard all year and go and use that time to serve underprivileged communities and countries. This is tapo yajña, where you are denying yourself something to serve. So obviously it's higher than just giving away some excess you have. What are you sacrificing? It's very subtle but important difference, far superior. And far superior to giving in effort is actually giving some subtler benefit to the donee, to the recipient, which is yoga yajña, mental service. You give emotions. It's far greater than just giving a meal. You give them knowledge of how to be self-sufficient of a trade or profession, so that they don't have to depend on you or anybody. It's far higher level of service. But the highest thing you can give any human being, they can have all the material, emotional, intellectual gifts, but they're all temporary. They can never satisfy any person permanently. So the greatest gift you can give is Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the self, because that gives you a permanent benefit. It transforms a person permanently and gives them ultimately infinite bliss of enlightenment. So that's the greatest gift. But to give that gift, you must have it. So he says, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajña, the ascetics of rigid vows, those who deny themselves this world and actually put in effort to become one with the self, they are the ones doing the greatest service, because only they can give out this knowledge of the self. So that's why you find, in spite of all the charity being done, the world remains as poor, as unethical, as corrupt as ever, because there is no effort to change the character, the values of a human. There's no effort in that at all. So how are you going to do it? How are you going to get in? You understand? So you really want to serve? He says, gain the knowledge. That is the greatest service you can do. So whatever service you're doing, first of all, nobody's doing service. At least start with the lowest. Give away your excess. That also they don't do. And if you're already doing that, learn to give higher and higher levels of service. Because the same effort should have a better effect. That's what he's trying to say. So the fundamental principle is every aspect should be giving. There should be an attitude of sharing constantly. So the Upanishad says that Shraddhaya Diyam, when he talks of giving in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, means it should be given with feeling and consistency, constancy. It's not something which stops. See, that is why traditionally when you give a gift of money also, you never put a zero at the end. See, suppose you give $1,000, it's 1,001, right? In India, that's the tradition. Even 10,001 is never, because zero means it's complete. So the one is, nobody knows, they just do it out of tradition. The one is going to continue the next time. This is the first of that. That's the token for the next time. In other words, I'm not going to stop serving. It's all symbolic. It's nothing to do with money. It's your attitude. So that reflects that attitude. That's what he says. Shraddhaya Diyam. So all these traditions come from the Upanishad. Gita was much later. So it says it's constancy. There's no stopping. Shriya Diyam. Plus Shriya means it should be given in abundance to your capacity. There should be no holding back. Hriya Diyam. Hriya means humility. The minute you give with ego, it stops everything. I am a giver. You've polluted the whole gift. So there should be modesty, humility in giving. No big deal you're doing. You're just doing what you ought to do. Don't get a fat ego, I am serving, others are not. Destroy ego. Giving is meant to remove your ego. And you increase your ego. What kind of a giving is that? Bhayadiyam. Next thing he says, you must give with fear. Fear in the sense, you must fear a life of selfishness. If you don't give means you're selfish. You must fear that. You're going to be a highly disturbed person. So you must free yourself from... You see how they put it? This is thousands of years ago. Kevala Adi Bhavati Kevala Aghi is a Rig Veda. He who eats alone is alone a sinner. See how he puts it. He who eats alone is a sinner. Kevala is used twice. So you must fear that kind of life where you just aggrandize and don't think of others around you. What a disgusting life that must be. Mentally sick. Samvidadiyam. He ends with that. Samvida means giving should be with intellect. You must think who you're giving, why you're giving, what is the effect. It's not just impulsive. I'm giving. What are you giving? Who are you giving? Why are you giving? So I'm giving that quote because it goes with this verse of giving. Nobody knows what it is to give. And everybody who gives impulsive, with ego, vanity, show, ostentation. It's totally internal. That attitude, that spirit which never stops. Because the fundamental truth of life, that's what he wants you to fear, is no person who's selfish is happy. This is the lesson which should be taught to the kids when they are 1 year old. This is what you should teach. Not what would you like, can I get you. First thing, if you are selfish, you will never be happy. Make sure that goes in. The only way to be peaceful is to not think of yourself. This is the law. Find me one selfish person is happy. Highly disturbed people. And this is the only lesson which is not taught. Right in the beginning, this so-called education is the more you aggrandize, learn how to gain more from the world for yourself. That's the way you'll be happy. The whole education is built around that. What can I do to get the maximum extraction from the world? So, at least you should understand yourself. The more selfish you are, the more miserable you'll be. So, giving is not for others, it's for your own well being. First, understand that. Nobody needs your service. You understand? Jayu.
In this thing, the diagram of that yajna, first yajna and second yajna is identified as limited ideal and absolute ideal. And I wasn't clear about how a limited ideal would be a sacrifice, a yajna.
Limited ideal means something in the world. So if you're serving your community, why is it not yajna? You're not serving yourself. So limited ideal is for a person who can't conceive self-realization as a goal, which is almost everybody.
Okay.
Who can conceive self-enlightenment as a goal? That's the absolute ideal.
Right.
So we all have to conceive intermediate goals. How can I serve my company, my patients, my whatever it is, community, right?
Yes, I understand now. Thank you.
Payal?
I have a question about giving. We have been talking about what is giving, and the explanation that you just gave beautifully. My question is, can I be selfish and can I give thinking that what benefits is it going to bring to me? Can that make me selfish in giving?
Yes, of course. That is what you have to be. Then it's not giving. Then it's a business transaction. You're doing something to get something. It doesn't have to be a material benefit. It could even be emotional. You want respect from others. Aishwarya, he says in the Gita, you want that ostentation, you want that power, that renown, that you're a great giver. You want your recognition. It could even be subtler than that. It could be a feeling that you get internally that I am a giver. You revel in that I am, in other words, I am better than other takers. It's a egoistic kick. Even that is selfish. Even that should not be there. So true giving, you don't bring your selfishness at all. This ought to be done, it is being done. That's it, regardless of how I feel about it. That is true giving. You get it? And even within that, he's saying you should keep escalating, so you're helping in a superior way. You're doing, your efforts are going for a better purpose. Higher, rather than, that's what I explained. Not I explained, the Gita explained. Giving just something which is excess versus putting in real effort, that is superior, etc. Roxanne?
Try to give knowledge of yourself when you try to get it, it takes like half your lifetime to get it. Like, do you just point people in that direction? Because like Swamiji was saying last week, everyone's conditioned. Like, it's such a big thing. What can you practically do to give it to somebody?
Yes, see, what he's trying to say is your focus should be on gaining the knowledge, because only then you'll be able to give the highest, right? Now, you're right. Most people are not capable of that. Like, for example, Buddha left his palace and pleasures and secluded himself. So for those years, he was not giving anything. But the effect is so powerful when you start giving. Even till today, people are learning from him after thousands of years. You understand? That is the effect. It's a transformative effect. So obviously, we're not able to relate to that completely. So you must give whatever best you can give, right? In your own way. But don't lose focus of the ultimate gift, which is knowledge of the self. So continue gaining that. So that's what you're doing, right? In the early morning, you're studying, you're trying to grow yourself. And during the day, you're trying to be as selfless as possible in your own sphere of influence. That's good enough. So both are done concurrently. You can't do giving of self completely. You're not capable of that.
Yeah, because he was joking that he's been talking about this for 50 years and no one understands. And so,
no, he's not joking about that. That I know is a fact. There's no joke about that.
So I was just thinking, what can we really give to in that? Like, just be an example. Like, see what I'm saying? To get past the conditioning, to actually give knowledge of self, what can you really do?
Yes, you got to grow yourself. You're right. You have to grow, and then it flows with you to the world. And if you cannot do it yourself, you must support those who are able to do it. This education. So in the good old days, for example, the kings, they're not able to do it themselves, but they made sure the spiritual education was taken care of in the society, right? So these days, the businessmen or the fellows with wealth are the kings, so-called. They can't do it themselves. So they must make it a priority for others who are doing it to enable people to gain the knowledge.
Okay.
So that's the next level of giving the knowledge of the self. You can't do it directly. Those who are doing it, make sure they are enabled. That becomes your obligation. Get it? Vikram.
Gautamji, there is a question from Seamus. If giving isn't for others, but for your own well-being, how can such giving be considered selfless?
Giving is selfless. All I'm saying is, by being selfless, you will be happy. What are you saying? How can that be taking? Taking is selfishness. So, this is the contradiction of life. By being selfless, you will be peaceful. By removing your ego, by removing your selfishness, you will be happy. So, how is it selfish? I don't understand. And if you are saying pursuit of happiness, that is the reason you are living. That has nothing to do with selfishness, unselfishness. God or self is infinite happiness. That's the reason for your existence, is to get to that state. So, pursuit of happiness is not selfish. Vedanta is saying happiness can only be achieved by selflessness, by destroying your selfishness. So, what are we talking? Yes, Manish.
Indeed. So this ought to be done, so it is being done, right? So for people who are just starting on this journey like me, who am I to decide as ought to be done? Is it then I have to believe my guru to say this ought to be done, so you ought to do it? Like, who decides it? Do I decide?
You decide it. Ought to be done is when your intellect comes to a conclusion, what ought to be done. That is, you decide. But the basis upon which you decide is this knowledge. You must understand the whole knowledge of life to understand what is your goal. And then whatever gets you to that goal is what ought to be done. So obviously you have to have clarity and knowledge to understand what ought to be done in life. So if you don't understand, gain the knowledge. Then you'll know what ought to be done, which is what you're doing now.
Thank you.
And in the process, if there are major life decisions, yes, you must have access to somebody who can think better than you. Otherwise, you're going
That's
to be
why, yeah. Otherwise, it's very difficult to know.
Yes. Yeah. So, if it's a major thing, yes, you must consult. But generally, keep gaining the knowledge, and that will determine what ought to be done.
Thank you.
So right now, what ought to be done is gain the knowledge. Got it? That's all. Work on that. Chitra.
And Gautamji, on the response that you gave to the prior question with the example that, in olden days, you are unable to give, at least enable others to impart the knowledge. And you gave the example of kings, right?
Right.
Just trying to frame it up in the modern context, as you have correctly pointed out last year, that if we encounter situations like that, we shouldn't jump and take a deep dive into explaining, because we're not trained to explain concepts like that. We can, and I've met my response with varied levels of successes where I pointed them to Vedanta. Some people have gotten in. Where in the book is this explained, where you outline Shriyadhyam, Riyadhyam, Bhayadhyam? Is this part also explained, that enable others to impart the knowledge is also a form of giving?
Those days they understood that the society was built around Vedanta. What are you must understand they can't write obvious, like it's like saying when the sun comes out, it's day. Is it given anywhere? It's obvious. So those days the setup was like that. So the sages who had the knowledge had their gurukulas where people came to learn. The adults part-time and the children full-time. That was the setup, which was maintained by the kings. It was their obligation. In fact, power was given to the kings by the sages only to help them, so that they could concentrate on spiritual service, and these fellows protected the society and made sure this knowledge was enabled. That was the only role. Then they became selfish and took over, and the whole disaster started. First disaster, the warrior class takes over. They stop listening to the philosopher class, gone. Then the next disaster is when the Business class takes over, which is absolute disaster, which is what is the world is today. So if the people with the selfish values take over, what's going to happen? Rachel?
Hi, Gautamji. When the gentleman was talking about having the knowledge and doing what ought to be done, when we're at an impasse and needing to, say, decide on what ought to be done, where does intuition play into that? I don't understand. I mean, when do we trust our intuition?
See, I've talked about intuition. People use it very loosely.
Right.
You understand? So, if the intuition is just a feeling, you should not listen to it. You must use your intellect and understanding and go by that. Analyze the situation and go by that.
Okay.
True intuition is when the knowledge is so much a part of you that you don't need to analyze. That is a very high state. Like, for example, a doctor has seen 100,000 patients in his lifetime. After 30 years of practice, he looks at a patient and he knows what's wrong with them. That's not intuition as people understand. That is knowledge from the past. He doesn't have to look at the blood reports and all. He looks at your face, he'll know. Because he's so experienced. So in that sense, intuitively the person knows. But that is knowledge. That's not feeling.
Okay.
Intuition, how people use it is, I looked at that fellow. There's something wrong, you know. It could be a divine person and you'll say he's a devil. You know, I didn't think this. He was a little rude. So these kind of intuitions, stay away from. People who have such intuitions and yourself. Go by thinking and reason. Emily?
How do we handle becoming overwhelmed with so much, selfless giving, whether it's teaching, whether it's just doing the things that has to be done in your own circle, and people asking for more? How do we become overwhelmed? I just want to isolate myself. How do I work through those moments where I know it should be done, but I don't want to do anything. I just want to isolate because I feel overwhelmed from doing so much.
Yeah, so feeling overwhelmed comes when you do something including giving beyond your capacity. You understand? So I had a seminar last week, or I don't know when I had, a couple of weeks back, in this big company here in Manhattan. And the question comes, every time it comes, at the Q&A session. We have such high pressure deadlines. How can we not be stressed? All dead people make deadlines. Deadline. What is a deadline? I say, first of all, it should be reasonable. Any action. And I gave the example, then they understood. I say, India has never won Wimbledon. I'm how old am I? 52. 52. And I say, no, next year I want to win Wimbledon next year for India. What a great cause. No Indian has ever won the Wimbledon championship. I should go to a psychiatrist. You understand? It's a noble cause. It's a great thing. But it's not possible. You cannot do it. Nobody can do it. At 52, start training. Even if you've played tennis all your life, it's impossible. So I don't know what these people talk. You understand? You must have impossible deadlines. Then they'll be all dead. You understand? That's all will happen. I'll be dead trying to practice, train to beat 20-year-old fellows. So there should be, you should assess your capacity and take up actions according to that capacity. So what overwhelm? Suppose I have capacity to give one lecture in the morning and people want me to give 3. They can have all the expectations. I can give 1. That's all. That's my capacity. You may want 3 from me. That's your problem, not mine. So each one must understand what is their capacity, including giving. You earn 100,000, you can't give 70,000. What about your family and your whatever it is? Maybe you can give 5,000, etc. So it's like that. Each one has their capacity. I'm giving a financial example. In terms of your effort, is the same thing. You have 24 hours in a day. How much can you do at that time? You must assess. Now the problem with most people who want to give and serve, they have a weakness of not being able to say no. It's a weakness. You want others' approval. You can't bear it that others think ill of you. It's a weakness. Suffer for that. Nothing but an ego. Benevolent ego. I am goody person. How can anybody think bad of me? I'm such a nice person. A good should be written on your t-shirt, no? I'm a good person. So sit and suffer. See, nobody uses their intellect in anything, including giving. So that's why now you say, now I want to run away from everybody. Now, whose fault is that? Now, don't blame them. People will have their expectations. You decide what you can and cannot do. To thine own self be true, and it must follow as night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. See, that's what Shakespeare says. You be true to yourself, genuinely. Then you're not being false to anybody. That's the best you can do. But you have a weakness. You want others' approval. You want others to think good of you. It's nothing but an ego, a weakness. So you have to suffer for that. Don't blame the world. It's your weakness. Like a person, I warned him, he'll go bankrupt. The child wanted to go to some school where he did not get a scholarship, he had to take loans. And that child got a scholarship which was, so this fellow could afford. He's not earning too much. He's very ordinary. I explained to him, no, it's my child. The fellow is bankrupt and the children who couldn't care less. The fellow asked them for help, you should hear what the answers they get. Now, who created that situation? Next thing I told him, next thing your child says, I want a Lamborghini, what are you going to say? Yes? What to do, my child? I only have one child, no? You have a weakness. You can't say no. Suffer. So life functions on pure cause and effect. Cause is your lack of control over your emotions. Effect is suffering. Don't blame the world. Nobody can make you suffer except yourself. Sanjay.
Hariam Gautamji. Gautamji, coming back to Swamiji's diagram of all of the Yajñas. So he specifies the fourth Yajna as restraint, and then the fifth Yajna as yoga of self-control. Can you just help elaborate the distinction between these two? Because for me, I think of restraint as a component of self-control.
Yes, the fourth Yajna, which is in verse 26, right? Hearing and other senses as sacrifice into the fires of restraint. Correct? So I told you, other senses, all five senses you must control, right? You must not indulge. And he gave the example also of ending perception with perception. That when a perception is over, this is a sensual perception, don't linger in that. That is specifically talking about that restraint, correct? And in the fifth one, he says all the senses and actions. So it's not including just senses, not just lingering. He's talking about even actions. everything in life should be directed towards the self. There should be self-control. You got it? So that is far more pervasive. He's including everything in that, not just the senses. That's the difference. Functions of perception and action. Indriya karmani, prana karmani. 29.
Apane juhvate pranam, prane panam tatha pare, pranapanagati rudva, pranayama parayana.
Yet others offer as sacrifice prana, incoming breath, into apana, outgoing breath. Apana into prana, opposite, outgoing into incoming. Restraining the courses of prana and apana, sama, absorbed in pranayama, breath control. So, after going through receipt, reaction, response, here he talks of even a mechanical, repetitive action like breathing can be converted into worship. So, when you inhale, inhalation is offered. What is kindled? Exhalation. You can't inhale. Only when inhalation is complete, it's consumed, exhalation is kindled, and vice versa. So he goes to that extent. You're sitting doing nothing, waiting at the doctor's office. In the sense, even you're aware of your breathing, you're doing nothing else. Even that you can think of as a yajna. I'm breathing just to keep myself alive for self-realization. That's the thought. That's what he means. In the Upanishads, he says that Tavaeva manas tanushu vibrata. For you alone, I keep this mind in the body. So this mind is being kept in this body. Otherwise, his body is useless. That's what he means. Because for you, for the self. That was the level of thinking. So this is the 10th yajna, inhalation, exhalation. 11th, he says, restrain the courses of prana and apana. See how subtly they change to a plural. Courses. So he's talking here about the environmental inputs and outputs. So when you're taking in breath, it's not just air. You must be careful whatever stimuli you're taking in. I've told you this before. Who are the people you're associating with? Because you're taking in their thoughts and emotions all the time. So if they have petty thoughts, selfish, egoistic, you're taking in those thoughts. It affects you. Just as taking in bad breath will affect you. You can't take in air which is less oxygen. It will affect you. Why do you take in thoughts and ideas from people which are not good for your development? Apana means output, action. Even your actions you have to be aware. He's already covered that. He's just giving a general overall picture. Any input, any output. So in other words, even the output you're serving, but you must make sure you're serving someone deserving. That comes under this. What is the environment you're serving in? It's amazing how he's covered everything. So restraining the courses of prana and apana, sama absorbed in pranayama, breath control. So breath control is the physical exercise of breathing and exhalation. What it means here is all perceptions, all actions, environment, all inputs, all outputs are dedicated in control. They are controlled. They are restrained for the purpose of self-realization. There's no indulgence. So this is 29. 30. Others with regulated food offer pranas into pranas. So this is the 12th and final yajna. See, what he's saying here is when you are regulated in your intake and output, right? Output even includes things like you're exercising, but you should not over exercise. It should be done so that it enhances your strength, not reduces it, right? So everything must be regulated. So when you regulate, which is the 11th yajna, you gain inner strength, right? When you have the right food, the right environment, spiritual and physical strength. That strength, which he says, those with regulated food offer into pranas, means external activities. They use that internal strength for the right type of actions in the world, spiritual actions. So that completes the cycle. So I know this is a difficult portion, but this is one of the most difficult portions in the Gita. But understand the principle. So starting with the stimuli from the world and ending with your responses back into the world. You see how it ends? 12 with your responses. So stimuli comes, you perceive, you restrain, which is yoga of self-control. Then you give wealth, austerity, mind, intellect, and study wisdom. Then you use your prana and apana, regulation of life's breath, activities, inputs, outputs, gain inner strength, right? And that inner strength goes back into the right external activity. So everything is covered. So all you need to understand is every aspect of life needs to be looked into. It should be dedicated to your spiritual growth. Every aspect. You must desist from anything which doesn't promote your spiritual development. That's a true sadhak. So all of you in your case, you must analyze why I'm harping on this. What you need to do after this portion, which means after today's lecture, is sit and analyze. What are the activities I am doing which promote my spiritual development? What are the things I am doing which are going against my spiritual development? There can only be two things, because either you're thinking of the higher or you're thinking of the lower. And where you think you're not doing what you should be doing, what more can I do? How can I control these activities and direct them to the higher? So let's say you say I'm socializing 3 times a week. I'm not able to get up in the morning because I'm all the time coming home late. So you can cut off one day. Let me socialize twice a week. And even those 2 days I socialize, I want to come home an hour earlier so I can get up in the morning and study. See, something you have to sacrifice, right? If you want to grow from your current level. See, the problem with people, even those who've been learning for a while, they get stuck at that particular level. They don't do this exercise. They become complacent. Yeah, knowledge is helping me. Life is good. There is complacency, stupidity. Because anything will change anytime. It will change. You must learn to be free of any external fluctuation. That should be your goal. So what are you doing about it? Yes. Ajay, you had something?
Yeah, Gautamji. I think in the last verse you said something about keeping the mind for self-growth or something. Can you expand on that one? I'm trying to catch it.
Just explained that only. The keeping the mind in the sense, whatever you do should promote your mind's focus on the higher.
Okay. All right.
And again, like we talked about, somebody asked a question about getting overwhelmed. Even the spiritual exercises, obviously, none of us are in a state to do them all the time. If you are there, you'll be a saint. So we need some contact with the world. Right? You must be aware of that also. Yes, this much relaxation I need. This much socializing I need. As long as it's done with the intellect, it will not impede your spiritual growth. But if you feel you're overdoing it, you're overindulging, that's what you should desist from. That's why somebody asked also, who decides what you ought to do? You decide. But at least stick to what you believe is correct. That also you don't do. This is real knowledge. Am I doing the best I can for my growth? Those are the people who will benefit from this knowledge. The rest is just entertainment. Once a week I listen to something good. You must also listen. That's just entertainment. What is it doing to you? How are you changing? Yes, Arun, you had something?
Yes, Gautamji, this circle, so these are all progressing in higher levels. Like, for example, you can't do prana and apana without actually doing the restraints, yoga of self-control. I mean, why is it a circle? I mean, can't you kind of try and do all of it simultaneously?
No, the circle is not saying you should do one or not the other. Circle is talking about the circle of life's activities. From receipt of stimuli to reaction within the mind intellect, response back into the world and the external environment. So all have to be done, of course. It's not you do one and not the other. The only thing which you one and not the other is the grades of service. If you can do a higher service, you need not do a lower service. You can do all. But
some are harder than the others, right?
Some are harder. Nothing is harder. The hardest thing is to keep your focus on the higher. These are the activities of life which are going on. What is harder about it?
Okay.
Chanti?
Namaste, Gautamji. Now I'm trying to link the previous example of being a capacity to say no, because that is attribute of an ego, not to be unable to say no, to these two verses, the 27 and 29 and 30. How can I link the prana apana and this aspect of the ego and help me?
Why are you relating the two? What does your breathing and exhalation have to do with saying no to others? Huh?
Yes. How do I?
There's no connection between the two. Why are you relating it? How do I relate grey color to Bhagavad Gita Chapter 14, verse 4? Right? Why you want to relate grey color to Chapter 4? There's no connection between the two. Prana and apana is while you are breathing and exhaling, you can think of that as a yajna. I want to explain that. Now digest that. That is something different, which we talked about saying no. Person is getting overwhelmed because they're saying I'm going on serving others, catering to others' expectations, and I'm overwhelmed. So why are you catering beyond your capacity? I explained the whole thing, right? You understand that separately.
Okay.
Manjula.
Hey Gautamji, it's my first time here, so maybe you have explained it before, I don't know. But how do you explain the fear which also causes selfishness, that you have, if you give things away, maybe you might need it in the future, and you're just fearful of that, and you just keep things to yourself.
No, then you, that is called hoarding.
Yes.
All hoarders have that problem.
Hoarding, but because of fear.
Fear, that's what, you have no control over that emotion of fear. Your mind is teasing you. It's absurd. When your child was 5 years old, you're keeping the same clothes in your closet. What if some other child needs it? Where's the end to that? So your mind is teasing you. This is the fear. You must tease it back. Yes, I will need it in the future and I will not have it. Right now I know I don't need it. You understand? You go by what what you are convinced of. What is your conviction at this point? And the mind says, what will happen in the future? Yes, I'll die. That's all. Just say that. What is the big deal? If I give my furniture cabinet, in the future, what if I need it? Yes, I'll do without a furniture cabinet. Finished. This fear is also selfishness. What is the root cause? In the future, I will suffer because of lack of that. Yes, suffer. At least now you will be peaceful. You understand? So this is how the mind teases you. What will happen to me in some point in the future? This is the disease of the human mind. Either it's worried about the past or it's anxious about the future. And most human beings spend their lives in these worries and anxieties. Now, what are you doing now? At this point, I don't need it. You understand? I'm earning 10 million. I'm spending $1 million a year. What am I doing with that 9 million? Use it for others who don't have it. Finish. Now, what if I need it in the future? I will die. That's all. It's better to die one day than die every day. You understand? That's what Ramatirtha said. There is no greater calamity than the fear of that calamity. That's the calamity. You know anybody who starved to death, Manjula? Do you know? All the people you met in your life, you know anyone who's starved to death? Why? What is wrong with you? Why will you starve? Don't worry. If you are starving, we are all there. Don't worry. We'll take care. You understand? Yeah. There's no end to this. This is how the mind teases you. This ought to be done. It will be done. Period. That's why the people who have the most insecurity. You understand? There's no end. You must understand that about the mind. You have 5 million. 10 million is more secure, no, than 5 million. You will never give. You have 10 million, but 20 million is more secure than 10 million. How can I give? I don't have anything to give. You have 20 million, 40 million is more, no? That is secure, no? 1 cent they will not give. You understand? So, this is the disease of the human mind. So, you go by reasonable. I'm not saying be unreasonable. This is what I have. This is what I need. This is what I need to save also. Yes, we all have to be careful about our future and all. Beyond that, how much can you plan? But what might happen? I'll die. Best. Less burden on this earth, already overburdened. Too many human beings. You got it? It's your first time, so I didn't want to go beyond this. You'll never come back. Already I forgot that by the time I finished this, I forgot this was the first time. Now she'll never come. So why did I open my mouth? But you're very brave, because people who've been coming for 5 years have not opened their mouth. At least you first time, see, you must learn. Why you're so brave? Why your mind teasing you about these stupid things? You okay? So what announcement we have this time today? Anything? Huh? WhatsApp. So WhatsApp, whatever it is, this community we have just for occasional announcements to you all, right? So some event is coming up. It's not a group, so you won't get so many messages. It's just from us to you for announcements. So people find it quite useful. Very occasionally we send. So you want to, if you're not a part, someone new, like how Manjula said she's new, you can use this QR code and you get on it from your WhatsApp. And again, for the others who are new, I would recommend, like how she's done, you keep your video on, because that automatically enhances your attention span. You understand? It's not for me, it's for you. So you know you're in a classroom. Makes a big difference to your receptivity. Otherwise, you shut it, then you go here, you go there, coffee also. I know what all you fellows will be doing. That's why it's not on. As long as you're decent and sitting in one place and not brushing your teeth or something, then we shut your video, because there should not be a disturbance. This is a classroom. Right. So any questions, we'll take them up on Wednesday. Hari Om. Thank you.